A new episode.
A new episode. I like that. That was a nice introduction.
I've noticed every time one of us starts an introduction, whatever we say, the other one just like parrots it. So if we're like, episode 4, then the other one's like, episode 4.
It's slightly awkward to say hello, to start like, hello.
Hi, welcome to our podcast.
Yeah, like we do it in the actual episode. Saying hello sometimes is a bit awkward, isn't it? Hello.
Yeah, what about when people say, all right? And you think, do I have to tell them if I'm all right, or are they just saying hi? This episode, Sarah, I feel was a curveball. Mm-hmm. We interviewed Peter Munroe, who is a chemistry teacher and head of chemistry, big in the oracy scene, especially for secondary science. We'd had our eye on him for a while and got him to come on an interview. And he just so happened to mention that his wife was a researcher, and we kept that one stored and went back to him and asked if we could speak with her, didn't we?
Yeah, it was good because I think at first he mentioned like having a science household or something for their children. And we were like, oh, what do you mean? Who else have you got in there?
Tell us more.
Yeah. And then he said his wife was obviously a researcher and she works for the University of Brighton.
Yeah.
In like cutting edge at the forefront of cancer research and development. So we were then like, well, we're going to have to get her on the podcast, I'm afraid, Peter. That's all we've got left.
What's yours is ours, Peter. Give us her number.
Then the rest is history. And she was brilliant.
I wish we could speak to Steph Munroe weekly just for a check-in.
Yeah, me too. She was absolutely lovely. And I loved it because, as everybody knows, we love a quiz, we love a game, we love anything like that. Steph came on her own. She
brought us a quiz.
She brought us a quiz.
Yeah, she did. A cancer-related quiz, which we were quite clued up on, actually. Not when it came to the costs of cancer research, we were pretty shocked, but we were quite good at the statistics because we'd had our head in the game.
The amount that everything costs in order to run tests, do things like that, shocked me. Just the sheer cost of everything. It really, really puts into perspective, doesn't it? Why, when people fundraise, when they do these things, that every single penny matters. And I think sometimes when people are giving a donation or they're raising money, they think, oh, well, I won't have any impact. You absolutely do.
Yeah.
And she stresses that throughout the whole thing, doesn't she?
I remember on your fundraiser, on your Just Giving page, some of my ex-students' names were on there and they donated £2. But, you know, it adds up. It makes a difference. If every single person donated £2, then that would be a really useful amount of money.
She talks about, like, the realities of being a researcher. She talks about being a female in STEM. She talks about being a mother. She talks about all of these things and she juggles absolutely everything at the same time.
I'm always in awe of the mums, someone who goes home and has extra things to do more than me. I'm just like, okay, are you a cyborg? How are you doing this?
I used to think that when I was teaching, like, you know, for me, when I went home, my house was very quiet and calm. It was lovely. Like, just that was it. Kind of the end of the day. Job was very stressful, enjoyable, but, you know, at the end of the day, I needed some downtime. But then if you've kids at home, you do not have that option. You don't have downtime.
No, absolutely not. I find that a lot of our episodes act as sort of teacher CPD, but this one is just interesting through and through.
It makes you want to go out and do something again, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So, watch this space, everyone.
Watch this space as Sarah does some skydiving next year for charity. Shall we go to the episode?
Absolutely.
Hope you all enjoy.
Hello and welcome back to STEM Conversations, a podcast created to share stories, ideas and experiences shaping science, technology, engineering and maths. I'm Sarah and I'm joined by my co-host Ash.
Today we're joined by Steph Munroe. Steph is a biomedical scientist with over a decade of experience working in the NHS and specialises in cancer research with a particular interest in the links between psychological stress and the progression of women's cancers. She's completed a master's in precision cancer medicine and is now doing a PhD at the University of Brighton, studying how stress hormones may influence cancer progression. Steph, welcome.
Hi, Sarah and Ash. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Today, we are going to be exploring the realities of cancer research. We're going to be talking a little bit about your journey into science, the strength and impact of women in STEM, and the realities of working in research. We're also going to dive into your work and explore the links between stress and cancer and how we can inspire that next generation into science. We're going a bit different today. I understand that you've prepared us a little quiz, Steph. Is that right?
It's right, Sarah. Yes. I thought I would just test your brains a little bit, see how much you and your listeners already know about cancer and research. And I was hoping that these questions might set the scene a little bit for us and give us topics that we could discuss. So for the first 3 statements I'm going to make, I would like you to say true or false. And if you can give a little bit of, justification as to why you said true or false, that would be great as well. And then for the last 3 statements that I will say, I would like you to reply with higher, lower, or stick.
Okay. Oh, I like that you've put a stick in there. That's good. Well, the option of saying stick anyway is good. Okay.
Makes it sound much more like a game and less terribly boring. Okay. So, for the first 3 statements, remember true or false. So, approximately 50% of people will get cancer at some point in their lifetime.
True.
Okay, yes, definitely. You were right. Well done. It is true. I don't know what you're feeling about that, but I think that sounds like quite a scary statistic, doesn't it?
I remember it being 1 in 3. I remember when I was younger saying that's terrifying, 1 in 3. Yeah. Now it's 1 in 2, which feels quite terrifying also, yeah.
No, you're so right. I remember it being 1 in 3 as well. I don't want to say how old that makes me, but yes, 1 in 3. And now, like you said, 1 in 2. And it makes you sort of a bit wonder, well, what's going to happen going forward? However, I know that sounds really scary, but I don't think it's as scary as it sounds because that includes all cancers. So, including some that are actually very treatable all the way up to the ones that are quite aggressive. So, it's not quite as scary as it sounds. And also cancer risk does increase with age. At the same time, like treatments and availability of screening programs also increase with age. The main screening programs that are available at the moment are for breast and colon cancer, and they are publicly available to all at the moment as soon as you hit 50. So it may not be as terrifying as it sounds. Just to sort of say, obviously, researching cancer is important. It does impact a lot of people and people who have had past experiences of cancer. But let's not think it's like all doom and gloom. There is a lot still good things coming. Okay, second statement. Skin cancer is the most common type of cancer amongst men and women in the UK.
False. I argue with my partner about this regularly. We're going on the sunbeds, so I think it's true. And if it's not, I misquote that at him to try and deter him from going on the sunbeds.
Deter him from actually going on the sunbeds. Well, I think it's false.
Is a good argument to have with your partner, I feel, and keep having that argument to tear him away from that sunbed. But it is actually false. It's not the most common type, but this was a really mean question because it is in the top 10, but it's not the most common.
Can we try and guess the top 3?
Please
Can we try and guess?
I think we might get it right. I think bowel.
I was going to say bowel or colon cancer.
Bowel cancer is number 4.
No way. Prostate.
Prostate's number 2. Well, okay, number 1 for men. Number 1 for men, I should say.
Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. Number 1 then is...
What do you think number 1 for women is?
I think
ovarian.
I was going to say that, but just because of Steph's field of work makes me feel drawn to ovarian.
It's actually breast. Breast is the most common for women. Prostate, the most common for men, then closely followed up by lung and colon cancer.
Lung cancer, I wouldn't have.
I'm surprised at that, the lung cancer, because I don't see as many people smoking anymore as maybe historically did.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Smoking is currently the leading preventable cause of cancer. Is this true or false?
I am going to say false.
Me too.
I think it's something, again, now, I think you've linked it to question 2. It's something to do with skin cancer. It's something like wearing sun cream or avoiding sunbeds.
Yeah. You're giving me far too much credit. But, unfortunately, it's true. Unfortunately, it's true.
Oh, no way. Still, today.
Yeah. Today, you're so right to talk about smoking. and how important it is even today. So it's estimated that smoking is responsible for the vast majority of lung cancer cases. However, I want to state that that is not all lung cancer cases. And I know 2 people, sadly, who have lung cancer and they never smoked a day in their life. And that's not true at all. So I think certainly above 80% of all lung cancer cases are directly attributable to smoking. But there are still a lot that are not. And unfortunately, lung is one of the ones that's not as well treated at the moment, but it's getting better.
Ask, is there any links yet between vaping and cancer, or is it still too new in terms of research?
That's such a good question. I get asked this quite a lot. And at the moment, vaping is so new and cancer usually takes decades to show.
Wow.
So at the moment, little evidence we can say for certain. However, there are studies that show that vaping is less harmful than smoking cigarettes because the burning of the tobacco is what creates a lot of those carcinogens that go into your lungs. Less harmful, though, does not mean safe. I don't want to say that. There are a lot of studies that show that vaping does increase the inflammation in your lungs and also in your heart. So I know today's podcast is about cancer and cancer research, but actually heart disease is just as prevalent as cancer as well and shouldn't be ignored. So hard to say overall, but it's not something that I would advise.
No.
We move on then to higher, lower, or stick.
Yeah.
Okay. Catching cancer early can improve survival by approximately 20%. So do you think the 20% should be higher, lower, or are you sticking at 20%?
Higher.
I think higher.
Yeah, absolutely. Many cancers actually can be extremely effectively treated if caught early and sometimes even completely cured. So especially things like breast cancer, colon cancer, cervical skin, even the typically more tricky to treat cancers like ovarian can be really, really well treated if caught early. But unfortunately, some cancers are not caught early and that's where the problems lie. But yeah, catching cancers early is our biggest thing that we want to focus on in research at the moment. How can we get there? How can we encourage patients to go to the doctor? How can we get these screening programs in, maybe even blood tests or things like that can help? Okay, second one, just to give you a bit of context. So in my job as a cancer researcher, one of the things that I often like to do is I would like to look at what genes in the DNA of cancer are active, because not all genes are switched on all the time. It's a little bit like having books in your library. You might have all these books, but you're not reading all of them at the same time. So it's a little bit like that. We want to get a snapshot of what books in your library are being used at that particular time, for want of a better word. So my question to you is, how many of my patient samples do you think that I could run for £500?
By running a sample, do you mean testing it? Doing
Testing
tests
it
on it?
for the genes that are active. Yes.
Okay.
In that
£500.
I'm going to say 2. And the reason that I'm going to be completely honest. We went in our initial conversations, had a chat around funding, and that floored me with how expensive everything is. So if I'd have come into this completely blind, I'd have probably said, I don't know, 50.
Mm-hmm.
But after our conversation, I am going to cheat a little bit and say 2.
I'm going to say 5.
It's actually only 1.
One.
I know, only one.
To test one person's.
Yeah, I know. So we have actually just been given funding to have a look at our endometrial cancer samples, our clinical trial that we're running at the moment. We've been given about £2,500 and we can only run about 5 or 6 samples. So we have to be really careful, obviously, about which samples we choose, as we have 30 patients overall. We'd love to test all of them. Okay, last one. In the last 5 years, 10 new drugs have been licensed by the FDA specifically for the treatment of cancer.
I'm going to stick. I'm going to
say higher.
Yeah. So it's actually really good. It's higher. So amazingly, it's actually much higher. So it stands at 52 new drugs.
Wow.
Have been licensed in the last 5 years, specifically for the treatment of cancer. So including one that has been made and tested in collaboration with our research group for the treatment of late stage ovarian cancer. So yeah, I just wanted to sort of end this quiz on a little positive note that actually maybe more is being achieved than people realize.
Yeah. It's nice to hear it from, you probably don't call yourself an expert, but someone that we would deem an expert, you know, more intricate details opposed to the stats that are thrust into your face online or on a billboard. It's nice to hear a little bit more of the background of that. Okay, let's start with your journey, Steph. You've spent over a decade working as a biomedical scientist with a strong focus on cancer research. What actually first drew you into STEM, and how has your path evolved over time?
It's a really hard question to answer, like exactly what was going through your mind. I think when I look back, when I was 14, probably, when I started thinking about careers and things, maybe a bit, I don't think I had a clue what I wanted to do. You know, people ask me a lot, well, what do you want to be when you're older? To be honest, like my sort of grumpy teenage self was mostly concerned about the things that I didn't like rather than the things that I did like. So, you know, I just remember, you know, complaining constantly about languages or complaining about having to do PE and the bleep test and how awful my life was.
That is awful. I will vouch for that.
It is awful. It is. Thank you. So trying to sort of hide away from that was my main sort of quest in life. And then I think maybe after a year, when you started doing GCSEs, you start thinking, okay, well, maybe I need to start looking at what I'm actually good at. Maybe that might help me sort of decide where I want to be. I was definitely starting to get quite good grades, I guess, in science in particular. I always clicked with human biology in particular. I can't stand plants. Sorry, botanist. I think I just really started enjoying the human biology side. I really liked the fact that you could fly it, you could see it working if you were talking about exercise or if you were talking about how like the kidneys work or how your muscles work. Like you can kind of see it happening, which is quite nice. It was very real for me. So I guess I sort of thought, okay, well, I know I'm good at biology. I know that I'm, you know, getting reasonable grades in this. So I should obviously be a doctor. You know, that's what my mind went to, because 15-year-old me didn't have a clue about anything else that was available in science, to be quite frank. I chose my GCSEs and my A levels based on that. I knew that you needed biology and chemistry to do medicine. So I chose those things based on that. I applied to medical school at the end of year 13. I think I just had no idea really what was really required to be a doctor. I hadn't done any experience. I think I thought like just doing well at school was enough. And I obviously I didn't get in, and I was
no, that was not obvious. I thought you were about to say you had.
No, not really. No, not then. And then I thought to myself, well, okay, looking back, I mean, at the time I was shocked. I was like, oh, goodness. But looking back, I'm like, that's really not surprising. I hadn't done anything outside of school. I hadn't had any kind of mentor or spoken to anybody who was a doctor or anything, to be quite honest with you. And so I thought to myself, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a gap year and then I'll work in hospital for a bit and then I'll reapply the following year. That seems like the logical thing to do. And honestly, it was the best experience of my life, like getting this experience working as a healthcare assistant in a geriatric ward for a grand total of 1 week. Before I realized how much I hated it. The expectations of the hospital were really, really full on. And honestly, it was really sad at times as well. Like, you know, watching people pass away and like watching the relationships of relatives. And it was terribly sad. And I was like, I'm not sure I can cope with it. My mental health won't cope with it. I'm so thankful, obviously, for our doctors and nurses today, is they do an amazing job. It's just something that I realized was just not for me. Life really sort of changed for me when I got a job working at the biomedical science laboratories in hospital. I just stumbled into the job really as an assistant. I needed money, and I applied for the job and I got it. And after a couple of years, I realized I loved it. I loved the diagnostic element. I loved the scientific element, but I didn't really have to have that like sad relationship with patients where you get kind of attached to people. And so I think for me, it was really good that being that bit removed and focusing more on the scientific element and helping people in that way, which was my strength, I think I realized. I did that for a few years, and the hospital then decided to fund me to go to university part-time, which I don't think is an option that many people would consider nowadays. They don't really consider part-time university work, but I think it really helped me. I was working at a hospital, getting a wage, and also getting my fees paid, which was just really great. And then after like 10 years of doing biomedical science, I was starting to move towards research in the hospital, and I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed the idea of helping more people than just the people that are coming through the hospital in my area, my local area. And so I went back to university. I went back to Brighton. I got my master's in precision cancer medicine, and I met my supervisor now, who's helping me with my PhD. And now, I'm studying how stress impacts the progression of women's cancers. And I really, I hope just continue my career, hopefully in that vein, by working more on research and maybe lecturing at universities.
I do think what you were saying about wanting to go to medical school, I think when we're young, we do romanticize what we want to do when we're older.
Yeah, you're so right. When you're a child, you don't really know, I don't think. And that's okay. Talk to teenagers. I think they feel this pressure of like, you have to know. And even now, when I'm getting a bit older, I think especially for women, some women will have a time when they have children maybe, and then life may change massively after that. It may be that your career that you were doing isn't now working. Maybe your hours aren't working for now your family. Whatever age you are, I don't think you ever stop developing and growing and looking for new things, and that's okay. At 35, actually, there are people in my PhD office who are 60 plus doing their PhDs, decided to have a change of career, and they're just so excited about it. You should be able to look around constantly and evolve as a professional.
I'll be honest, I think that's why asking this question is so important, because the amount of times that we've had, similar questions, like talk about your journey in STEM, I'll talk about this. And the majority of people either start it with, mine's not very interesting, or I've not actually thought about why or how, or, I got into STEM. But I think for people listening, especially if you are a teacher or you're in a mentor role or something like that, it's incredibly important to be sharing with young people. I am telling you now, there's probably not one person I've spoken to who was like, this is what I wanted to do. This was the exact linear pathway that I wanted. And now I'm in the job that I wanted to be in. For young people to hear that absolutely everybody in all of these different fields feel the same is massively empowering.
And actually, I think you kind of realize eventually when you get older and you look back and you're like, everyone had imposter syndrome. Everyone was in it. No one knew what they wanted to do.
Sarah and I are still winging it now in our mid-30s, we'll be honest.
I wasn't going to say that, but completely agree.
Yeah, I think we all feel like we're winging it, don't we? We do. We totally do.
Yeah.
And everyone else is looking at you going, wow, you've got it totally together. And I'm going,
and you're like, no, I haven't.
Yes.
So you work in a field where women are making huge contributions, particularly in health and biomedical research. From your experience, what strengths do you think women bring into STEM environments?
Whoa, you know what? I've been thinking about this question a lot since our initial chat.
That's why I put it in.
It's a good one, I have to say. I think from my point of view, I do still think that STEM is still quite male dominated overall. I think that's true. And there are lots of, thankfully, lots of organizations out there now that are trying to sort of address this balance. And I think podcasts like this are just so good, trying to get people to think from an early time in their careers and their academia is so important. weirdly for me though, I have always worked in quite a female dominated environment. Even now in my research position at the University of Brighton, my supervisor is a woman, and most of the higher scientists in my sort of bit are women, which is amazing. We do have men in our group as well. So I think I've had like a really great privilege of working, with sensational scientists of both men and women. I don't want to be like too generalizing, because obviously men and women are capable of having all skills depending on whatever gender they are. But the main thing that I wanted to sort of get across here is that researching cancer is so important, and we need a strong team of people to be able to do that. I think most people have it in their minds that cancer researchers are like older men with mustaches looking down microscopes in a lab all day, and they don't talk to people. And whilst that might be true sometimes, I do think that overall there are a lot more skills required than people realize. Being creative, being able to be communicative is so key. Mm-hmm. And whilst men, I think, definitely have the ability to be able to do those things, I think women definitely can too. Women are great at empathizing. Women are great at building those connections, at being sensitive and putting themselves in other people's shoes and communicating to all sorts of different people. So, highfalutin language for the academics, but also being real and connecting with patients. There's also the element of needing to present our work to funders, which I know we've spoken a bit about already, but we need to be able to convince people that what we're doing is important. And obviously, I think women and men are capable of doing those things really well. And everybody, if they feel called to help and join the cause and, come and help cancer research, they should feel empowered to do so. Okay, whether they are young, old, men, women, from whatever ethnic backgrounds, whatever previous academic level as well. Everyone should be able to access that pathway. Because if you came across a group of people that are all men in their 60s doing a particular job, if they were the only people that you ever met, you would maybe not consciously think it, but you would think, oh, maybe this isn't for me. My supervisor, Professor Mel Flint, she actually grew up in a particularly male-dominated world of STEM. I think it is improving, I guess, if you think of it that way. But she won't mind me sharing, but she was actually told as a teenager that she wasn't even allowed to study physics GCSE because that's just for boys.
Yeah.
And her mum marched right in there. Her mum is all of 5'1" and terribly scary lady.
Sounds familiar.
I'm 5'2", thank you.
Oh, sorry.
And a half. And but yeah, they went in there, sorted that out. Well, if her mum hadn't taken a stand and said, no, my daughter is doing this because she loves physics and you're not going to be told what to do by you, thank you very much. Then, she wouldn't have achieved everything that she's achieved now. And she really flies the flag for women in STEM. And she even is she's quite high up in the organization called Athena Swan, which is a organization that aims to address this gender imbalance in STEM.
It's so important, especially when you're speaking about like ovarian cancers, things like that. Like if we don't have the representation of women there, how can it be a true picture of how women feel or how they react to certain things? I often do wonder as well when there's apps that are made specifically for women, if we're talking about period tracking, how many women have been instrumental and involved in the development of that. I think it is so key, that genuine balance in the room so that it is representative of the people that it's hoping to serve.
Definitely.
When people think about cancer research, they often picture big breakthroughs, but there's also a lot of patience, teamwork, and persistence involved. What do you think people would find most surprising about what research actually looks like day to day?
I often joke about this because my PhD is looking at how resilience to psychological stress can impact progression of women's cancers. But I always say, I think the only thing that's going to be getting resilience here needs to be me to sort of get through it. Because honestly, there are times we just think, okay, we just got to leave now. No, just down tools and come back tomorrow. Everything that you're doing isn't working, or something that you've ordered hasn't turned up, or a student that you're waiting for got the wrong day. There's always those sorts of days, isn't there? We are doing completely new things. That means that most of these things aren't going to show potentially what you think they're going to show. When something does work, it's so exciting. It's a real buzz. But when it's not working, it can be a bit low feeling. And you just have to sort of dig deep, I suppose, and be patient and be kind to yourself and sort of think, well, maybe I didn't do it quite right. Maybe I didn't do enough cells. Maybe I need to change the concentration of the drug I'm using. Probably 9 times out of 10, it doesn't show what you think it's going to show, but it might show something different to what you thought. So it's still good.
I've got a question about this, and it is a curveball. I didn't prepare you that I was going to ask this.
That's fine.
So if you do a piece of research and the findings are unsuccessful, do you record it somewhere so someone doesn't repeat it later down the line?
So
like a database.
Yeah. So the answer officially is no. Yes, we do. We do within our group. Yes, we do. And we talk to each other. We might go to a conference and share those kinds of data with others sometimes. But the problem is, I think that there is this kind of glorified aspect of science where journals and publications only really interested in what we call successful or positive research or positive results.
It would have saved people a lot of time, and would potentially could be even further on in the whole research of it.
And it really affects your funding as well. I understand why, but actually negative results are still results. As long as the research has been done correctly and with integrity, then they are still good results and should still be published. So to stop other people, like you said, from wasting their time and money and just doing the same thing.
It's like you've got the ultimate checklist of things to tick off as no before you get to your yes. It's like, no, that doesn't work. No, that doesn't work. And then eventually there is a yes hidden in between all of that.
Exactly.
But it is reams and reams and reams of no.
Pretty much. I mean, we don't just kind of pluck ideas out of thin air. You do base your ideas on what other people have found or what you or your group has found in the past. Sometimes, for instance, we have cancer cells that we grow in flasks. And we can add hormones and treatments and things to them and see what they do. Basically, they're a really good starting point for looking at cancer research. But sometimes you'll find that hormones don't really do much to cells in that environment. And that's actually not too surprising because cells in the body don't live like that. They don't live as a flat sheet, like on the bottom of a flask. And they have like interactions with lots of other cells and the immune system and, they have blood rushing over them all the time and things like that. So actually, it's really different to what normal life is like. So it's not too surprising if you don't see something in that model. So then you might progress to say like a 3D model where you can grow these like 3D tumors in the lab. So they're a bit better than 2D. And so sometimes you might see something like that. So that's where the persistence and the stubbornness kind of comes from as well, because you might think, okay, I'm not ready to give up on this idea yet. I still think it's got, something in there that I don't want to let go.
Do you know, what I'm going to say is quite daft, but I imagine lots of people will think the same, so I'm going to own it. If I was around cancer cells all the time and I was looking at them, I think I'd be like, don't you touch me. I know it's not communicable, I know it's not contagious, but I'd be like, stay in that little
don't.
Stay in that tube.
You're looking at me funny. Don't look at me funny.
Does it know I'm trying to eliminate it? Is it going to tell its friends?
You know what? I get that. I think we use them obviously in flasks, in hoods, with all our protective gear on, so we are quite protected. But there has been a few times where, say, like liquid gets splashed or something, and people start to freak out. But the good news is that, like, in a completely immunocompetent person, so in somebody who's got a good immune system, 1 or 2 cancer cells should be eliminated from your body. It's not enough to actually get cancer in that way.
We've talked about it a little bit, especially in your quiz, but funding is a major part of scientific research. For people, 100% me, who might not realise how it works, how does funding shape what scientists are able to investigate and prioritise?
funding can look really different depending on what labs you're in and what collaborators you have and things. So my experience may be completely different to someone else's, especially if you're part of, say, like a big London university, or if you're part of, say, the National Cancer Institute. They usually have a great deal of funding from charities and the NHS and any collaborators that work with them. So all the people that I know that work in those sorts of environments don't usually struggle as much for funding. In the 2 years that I've been doing my PhD so far, I think I've received maybe 5 grants overall. You have to be quite bold and sort of just go for it. We're talking about this imposter syndrome, weren't we? And so in the PhD office recently, there was a grant going that we could all apply for. You've got to be bold and go for it. And you've got to just take life by the horns and go for it. And you never know what people will be wanting to fund in that particular moment. The only awkward thing is that when you get grants, which is great, there's usually reasonably strict stipulations on what you can spend it on. So you have to sort of know in advance exactly what you want the money for.
Can I ask a bit of a niche spin-off question? In education, we talk a lot about the postcode lottery. So in terms of where your school is determines like the outcome of your education in a way. Is that the same with, like, say, cancer diagnosis? Is it the same with cancer treatment? So you talked about large London hospitals.
Yeah.
If you are diagnosed with a cancer in like London or areas like that, have you got a higher survival rate than, say, other postcodes?
Yeah.
Any data on that?
So I don't know off the top of my head. But anecdotally, I know that there are some drugs that are only licensed for certain areas, like in the UK, and there is a postal code lottery associated with it. I know that lots of people obviously travel to London and get referred to London for specific treatment. I do think that, again, what we said a minute ago about being bold, that applies here as well. So if you do get diagnosed with something like cancer, for instance, but this can apply for any condition, making sure that you're talking to your doctors and making sure that you're asking, are there any clinical trials happening? Are there things that I can be referred to London for? If there's one available, then I know it sounds scary to some patients to take part in a clinical trial, especially if you don't know if you're going to be in the placebo group or not. Overall, stats do say that people tend to do better on clinical trials. I think people don't realize as well, people think that they're sort of being guinea pigs, I suppose, by taking part in a clinical trial.
My sister has cancer and she was interested in being part of a trial, and just showing an interest in it meant that we got more information about her cancer than we had in the first place, because her bloods were flown to America to be tested on to see if she could be part of this trial, and they analysed her blood and were able to explain why her cancer was so aggressive, which sadly ruled her out of the trial. But I also would advocate for anyone to get involved where possible, because you might just get a bit of information that you wouldn't have got before.
I do think like the kind of research nurses and doctors that run these trials also usually have a bit more, I mean, maybe this is me just from my experience, but they usually have a bit more time to give patients as well, because they are hoping to promote this trial. And so they will sit and talk about every little aspect over with patients, anybody that is thinking about taking the trial. And like I said, having that support or having somebody who has the time to sit and talk with you.
If funding and resources were less of a barrier, what areas of cancer research do you think would move forward much faster?
Yeah, so again, this is an interesting question. I do think that actually limited money resources isn't really the main barrier in cancer research, even though I think for the smaller pockets of individual researchers like myself, obviously having money is important, and without it, you can't do anything. So, that's not so good. But I do think overall, if we want to progress faster and more efficiently, what we need to do is build up links with other universities around us. We need to build up links with the NHS, with doctors and nurses, and all be working together as a unit rather than, like I said, these separate pockets of research. What's actually happened here in Sussex recently, which I'm quite excited about, is that we have recently formed this Sussex Cancer Research Centre, which combines all of these sort of groups. So we've got the 2 universities in Sussex, Brighton and Sussex, and also the medical school and also the hospitals that have come together, and they are offering greater pools of funding, greater knowledge and also the availability of patient samples to study. It's very difficult to get hold of patient samples to study, which I don't think people would realize it is, but it is. Even on human tissue that you're going to throw away, there is so many laws around. You can't just hold on to or take human tissue without loads of laws being in place.
Well, we've recently researched that with Henrietta Lacks. Sarah and I looked into that, and they did keep hold of her tissue illegally, didn't they?
They did, and there's been so many horrifying examples in history of when scientists have just taken it too far. But I do think it's potentially gone a bit too far the other way, in that researchers now can't really get hold of anything. So, for instance, like there was a time when I needed some placenta tissue for something, a marker that I wanted to run. And one of the people that we work with is a gynecological doctor. And she was like, there's so many placentas every day in the hospital that just get thinned. And I was like, oh, well, do you think we could ask a patient consent to have a little bit? We couldn't do it in the end, no, because, and I understand why it needs to be formally done and ethics needs to go through and, like months and months of ethics forms and review bodies, which is good, obviously, but it really does slow things down.
This might make me sound silly, but like I'm on the organ donation register. Is there nothing that you could do for research now? Like, for example, I don't know, if you needed some form of tissue that you could volunteer it?
Not that I'm aware of, to be honest. And I think the reason behind that is because people don't want to take advantage of anybody who is potentially vulnerable.
Like, it's your own body. You can't just be like, here's some of my placenta.
Well, I mean, no, you can't. No, I mean, I was thinking like I could have saved mine, like from my birth. I was just, apart from the fact that it's a bit gross.
I don't think it is.
Yeah, I mean,
we're all scientists here, Steph.
I did have a bit of a disgusting story that I can add if you'd like.
Please do.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
So, we use obviously really sharp knives in the labs to slice our tissue samples really, really, really thin, like 1 cell thick, and that's like 1,000th of a millimeter, so really, really, really thin. So the knives are really, really sharp, and a very sharp knife met my very fleshy finger about 10 years ago, and I've still got the scar to prove it on my finger, which unfortunately
was kept your finger. You didn't lose it.
No, but it had quite a bit of a haircut, I think. So it sort of went all the way down to certainly past the nail, like sort of down there. And unfortunately, it's my phone tapping finger. So, even now I can still sort of feel the scar there. But my friends in the lab, being the sort of supportive people that they are, they decided to just put the fingertip in formalin for me. And so I could keep it as a souvenir.
There you go.
Have you still got it?
So, for a shockingly amount of time, maybe like 2 weeks or something, I kept it in my bedroom. I'm like, what am I doing? This is disgusting. I really, why have I done this? But yeah, but thinking about it now, maybe I shouldn't have done that because of the Human Tissue Act laws. I don't know.
Isn't it crazy that the laws about your own fingertip that you accidentally cut off?
Your research looks at something really fascinating, which is the link between psychological stress and cancer progression. Can you explain what you've been investigating and why this area is so important?
Yeah, definitely. I can try. So psychological stress here, I think, is a really broad term. And it can mean lots of different types of stress. So it can either be a stress that someone is facing in the short term, like immediate stress, or it can be more long term that the person is really struggling to resolve. So examples of, say, short term stress are things where like you're taking an exam, or you've got public speaking to do, or you're doing
on a podcast.
Or you're doing a podcast. Exactly, terrible things, or even things like, running for a bus. All of those things will give you that short-term stressful experience that your body sort of encounters. But actually, the good news is that that kind of stress is actually quite good for you. Our work focuses more on when stress becomes chronic. So maybe over months or years when somebody really struggles to resolve whatever is in front of them. So that's the kind of stress that would be coming from like a long-term illness, like cancer, for instance. My particular interest is cortisol. Cortisol is a hormone that goes up quite sharply in the morning to sort of give us that like awake feeling. And then it sort of dips throughout the day and then is supposed to be quite low when you go to bed at nighttime. And that's the sort of normal circadian rhythm of cortisol. But people that are more stressed have a sort of a blunted cortisol pattern. So they don't really go up in the morning. So they don't get that good feeling of it's morning, I'm awake and I need to get going. And they don't really have that like switching off time at nighttime. So they're kind of constantly in this state of half stress. And what we have found in our research group up to this point is that that kind of stress can weaken your immune system over time. So those sorts of people might actually have things like colds a little bit more, those sorts of things as well, because they're a little bit more weakened. That's the particular area that we're looking at. So if somebody has a weakened immune system, that will directly affect how your body responds to cancer, because our immune system is our soldiers or our army that will protect you from cancer. So obviously it can't save or prevent all cancers, but having a strong immune system will help. And so if you have a weakened immune system, then I'm sort of interested in, well, how does that affect progression of ovarian cancer in particular? But I'm also starting to dabble a little bit more now into endometrial cancer. But the bit that I am particularly interested in is not actually stress. I know I've just said that, but it's resilience to stress. So some people will just respond differently to others. Like we know that if you look around the room and let's say a balloon popped or something in the room, some people will respond terribly to that. Some people are
like a dog barking on, and
some people it doesn't even register on their brain as something has happened.
Honestly. Steph, I'm laughing because Sarah and I once at our old workplace were in a meeting and a dog did bark. Somebody that wasn't us was really, really unnerved, like jumped, spilled drink everywhere.
Some people just struggle to cope with the same situation that others just don't even see it as a situation. In science, we call this resilience. So some people, about 20% of the population approximately, seem to be able to really quickly or relatively quickly bounce back from stressful situations than others. Those are the people that I'm particularly interested in. If they are able to bounce back from stressful situations quickly, then does that mean that their immune system responds differently? And it kind of implies that it will. If chronically stressed individuals have a weakened immune system, then do resilient individuals have a stronger immune system? How can we harness that to help all patients with ovarian cancer and not just the ones that are naturally more resilient?
Yeah, because that's so difficult, isn't it, to be like, just don't be stressed. Just don't be stressed about it. How do you then build that resilience, I suppose? Is there anything that you could do?
Really good question. There are resilience programs, like things that you can do to build resilience. But the thing that I have on my heart, and I think most of your listeners as well will have on their hearts, is young people. I think that if you build resilience early, and if we acknowledge that a lot has happened in the last couple of years, like with COVID and everything, that has really caused anxieties to go up and also resilience to come down. And I just think that if we can be aware of that, the resilience isn't something that's just in the mind. It actually can affect your body, your physical body, down to the cellular level. Then it's not something that we should not talk about. It's not something that we should brush under the carpet. It is important. And, we all know that the patterns that you start in your life as a young person will probably continue throughout your life. So like previous research has shown that resilience levels are roughly kind of set by the time you're 25. And so I think sort of teachers and parents being aware of that. Is there something that can be brought in to encourage this resilience? I think it should be on people's minds.
Sarah runs and runs and runs to all the places she wants to go.
Yeah. He's the one that makes people like me feel bad. I get a Twix.
I run and go to the gym until the point that I injure myself, and then I tell you what, my resilience is gone.
Oh,
Then I
yeah,
horrific.
well, because that's a
horrific.
coping mechanism, so having that ripped away, that's, that will feel, really difficult.
Then I'm insufferable and you just want to leave me alone.
I wonder what my coping mechanism is.
I don't actually know.
I don't either.
Your family,
Maybe I'm just
maybe?
nervous stressed.
Support in your family? Talking?
Yeah.
Doing podcasts?
Yeah.
I tell you what it is. It's humour. So it's making a joke out of it. So
that's deflection, right? Deflection.
Moving on. Mentoring is often a turning point for young people. What role has mentoring played in your own journey, and how can we better support young people to step into STEM pathways?
I love this question. So I am also a tutor. I tutor science to GCSE and A-level as well. So even though I'm not a teacher, I feel as if I do have some insight, and obviously I'm a parent as well to my 3 children of 5, 7 and 9. I know we said this earlier, but young people learn so much through witnessing and being exposed to all different people and feeling their passions. I really, really think that young people in general are so good at calling you out if they sense something that's not true. And, nowadays they have the confidence to sort of look at you with disdain. Just feel like talking to them completely real, is the way to go, giving them the respect they deserve. Certainly from my experience as being a parent and seeing the children at primary school, they are such good questions. They haven't got to the point yet where they feel embarrassed, where they feel like they can't ask questions. They still look for their role models around them. My 9-year-old, for instance, the other day, he said to me, what's an acid? And I was like, how do I sort of say this in a way that you can understand? I was like, well, it's something that's really low on the pH scale. Yeah. And it's like, what's the pH scale? Well, something where you've got a lot of hydrogen ions. And then that means it's very low on the pH scale. Oh, okay. What's a hydrogen ion?
Oh, wow. Your child is going to be very, very, very scientific.
The point is, though, by the end of the conversation, he's able to tell me about the pH scale. He's able to tell me, what's the difference between hydrogen ions and hydroxide ions. And I just think other people would look at me and think, you're mad for even trying to explain that. If they're asking the question, that means they are able to hear the answer, in a way that's, able to be spoken to them, obviously. And another question that, my daughter would say to me, are eggs alive? Are chicken eggs alive?
What a very good question.
Really good question. I'm sitting there going,
how old is your daughter?
She's 7. 7. Well, they're sometimes alive. It depends on whether they're fertilized or not. What's fertilized? So these are the questions, my husband will be looking at me going, you've got yourself into that mess. You can get yourself out. I'm not having that conversation.
I do some mentoring with the STEMettes. It is amazing how much you get back from it as well, being the mentor as the mentee does. And, the amount of skills and things that I'm learning. So to end our conversation, we like to give listeners one key takeaway from each episode. What's one idea, perspective, or piece of advice you'd love them to carry with them after this conversation?
It's a really good question. The thing that I've been thinking about recently that is on my heart is that I just think that all of these sort of sciencey jobs and these jobs in STEM, I think everyone comes from it thinking that you have to be really good at maths. And that if you're not good at maths, you might as well just pack up and go home. Don't let that be the reason that you don't go into STEM. Don't let your weakness potentially with numbers stop you from doing it, because there's lots of tools out there that can help you. I'm not saying you need no understanding. You do obviously need a bit. If you've got support, if you've got tools, you can get through it, and actually you can find that it's quite enjoyable in the end.
I like what you're saying about tools as well, because when I was at school, if I tried to use a calculator, my teacher would be like, "You're not going to always have a calculator in your pocket."
Yeah.
Fast forward to 2026.
Yeah.
You are.
Yeah,
We have
exactly.
on our phone always got a calculator in our pocket.
If you've got that tool available to you, again, it's not weakness to use it. Use it and then spend your time doing what is more important.
Can I add, I love maths, by the way. I've always loved maths. Really, it's a good job because a lot of my degree was like research and statistics. However, I don't do it if I don't have to because it's so much more efficient. Don't get me wrong, I double and I triple check, which takes a little bit longer than just asking ChatGPT. I'm like, can you check that again? Copy into Gemini from ChatGPT.
Really enjoyed teaching maths. But do you remember when we probably all did this? We're at a very, very similar age, if not exactly the same. Do you remember doing mental maths tests where it came out on a recorder and there was like a tape recorder, and they put the tape in at the front, and then you had like, I don't know, 5 seconds to do the first 5 questions, then 10 seconds to do the next.
Rogue, isn't it? I don't think they do that anymore, surely.
They kind of do. They do.
What, your time?
Like a times table test where you've got like, I think it's 3 seconds to answer questions and things.
Yeah, they're like,
you could just you might not even use your brain. You might just know 6 6s are 36. You've not even used your brain.
That's the whole big debate in maths. Like,
is it? Wow. I'll leave that for another episode.
Yeah. I mean, it's like
I don't like that.
The bleak test of the maths world, isn't it?
Thank you so much for joining us today. We've been really looking forward to speaking with you. It's been great hearing about your journey through STEM, the work you're doing in cancer research, and the passion and determination you bring to such an important field.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me. It's been really great to chat to you guys.
And thank you to everyone listening. Don't forget to follow STEM Conversations wherever you get your podcasts, and join us next time for more stories and ideas shaping science, technology, engineering and maths.